big show tonight. Illinois Senate President Don Harmon, followed by State Rep Kelly Cassidy and Rich Miller, the founder of Capitol Facts. So we have a lot of state stuff to talk about. Kicking us off on the phone is State Senate President Don Harmon. He became Senate President in January of 2020. The Oak Park native represents a district around Oak Park and the surrounding city and suburb turf. He's an undergraduate in English from Knox College, a law degree and MBA from the University of Chicago. And a fun fact about Don Harmon, he plays the guitar and is a member of the Boat Drink Caucus. Now, Senator Harmon, President Harmon, thanks for being here. I know we have a heart out for you in 20 minutes, so there's 3 topics I want you to address, so pace yourself with me before I toss it to Laura. We're going to talk about the energy bill, we're going to talk about the veto session and the congressional map. First of all, thank you for being here, President Harmon.
Thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry to have some technical issues this evening.
You sound great. Coming through somewhere at some location. Illinois. Maybe you could just, where are you right now and what part of the state?
Believe it or not, I am outside of St. Ignatius, where my daughter is celebrating her senior night for field hockey, and I just barely got here for the end of the game.
And that's why we need to get you on time. So let me just jump in. The energy bill was a giant accomplishment in this session. So we know energy rates are going to rise. I've heard from $3 a month to $11, depending who's making the estimate. What do you think is going to be the impact?
Let me share 2 things. First, we have fairly reliable estimates that the impact of the climate bill on the transmission portion of your bill, what we all pay to have the electricity delivered to our homes, may go up. The estimates of between $3 and $3.50 a month, I think, are the most sound. There have been some wild and unsubstantiated numbers thrown around irresponsibly in my mind, but I think it's safe to say that it's $3 to $3.50 a month for the transmission, for the delivery of our electricity. That's a relatively small part of your bill. If you open up the bill, mostly you're paying for the electricity. And that we hope will come down over time as a result of our investments in renewable energy and an affordable, reliable electric system.
Okay, so is the reason the rates are going up, and just so our listeners know, there is some disagreement with President Harmon's estimate, but is the reason they're going up is because in order to, the subsidy to the nuclear Commonwealth Edison nuclear plants has been cut. They're still going to be with us. They're an important part of the energy mix in Illinois, but is that why the rates are going up? That the subsidy is—
That is a portion of it. We are subsidizing the 3 of the Exelon-owned nuclear facilities to make sure that they stay online, which is an important part of our bridge to a clean energy future. If we let them close, we would have to rely on dirty fossil fuel, primarily coal. In addition, we are maintaining thousands of jobs at and around those plants. We're also investing, though, in renewable energy, in solar and wind, as well as equity to make sure Black and brown contractors and employees can participate in the new green economy.
And those are good union jobs at the nuclear plant. So quickly on the future of electric vehicles in Illinois. If the federal infrastructure bill goes through, there's going to be help in Illinois. Can you just tick off 1 or 2 things before I switch topics? What I understand there's something in your bill to help the electric car industry in Illinois or the development of batteries. Can you just quickly tell me what it is? If not, I will move on.
We are investing in charging stations, essentially, so that when you buy your electric vehicle, you can sleep soundly knowing you'll be able to charge it at different corners of Illinois. That's a critical investment, and that's the next big problem with climate change. It's not just the power generators, it's the motor vehicles.
That's true, and the big issue with the electric cars is that you have a hesitation if you can't get them charged. New topic. You're going to have a veto session coming up at the end of October. Given everything that's been happening around abortion rights, given what Texas has done to restrict them, you have a chance in the veto session to repeal the parental notification bill in Illinois, where if a girl needs an abortion, she has to ask her parents if she's underage. Given everything in order to safeguard and preserve rights, what's your view on that, and should it and will it come up in the veto session?
I think many of us are horrified by what happened in Texas, and even more horrified by what didn't happen in Washington, D.C., with the Supreme Court declining to intervene. I think that's given many people pause and wondering if the next action the Supreme Court takes would be overturning Roe against Wade. In Illinois, over the last 15 years, we have taken affirmative steps to make sure that no matter what happens in the Supreme Court, a woman's right to a comprehensive suite of reproductive health care services is available here in Illinois. I expect that we will turn to dealing with the last vestiges of that anti-choice laws in Illinois, as well as figuring out how best to respond to Texas. I was visiting with constituents this week who were telling me that local doctors are in fact getting patients coming from Texas now because of what's happened there.
So you do expect to take up specifically the parental notification, and you have the votes, don't you, to avoid it if need be?
We have a strongly pro-choice chamber. I think we're looking at that, as well as what we might do in direct response to the law in Texas.
Can I pick up on that, Senator Harmon? Do you expect the Texas law to have any impact on that debate, on the parental notification debate? Many people are saying that that law has really energized Democrats and pro-choice activists around the country. Will that make a difference in terms of the debate you might have on parental notification later this year?
I think it will, for two reasons. One, obviously, I don't think Texas is the only state that's going to adopt that. I think you'll see efforts in states, including those surrounding Illinois. But also, if you just look at the framework of state laws in the event that Roe is overturned, Illinois really looks like an island in a sea of red, even more so than we do looking at, say, presidential election results.
On it. So before I turn to the congressional map, I do want to tie the bow on the energy bill. We have one of our viewers, Susan Lee, wants to know who deserves the greatest credit for passage of the energy bill. And without doing a long story, could you help us answer our viewers' question? Who do you give the most credit to? And she put out there, is it CUB, the sponsors, activists, or what?
Like any success, there are many parents, and this was clearly a team effort. The Senate, the House, the governor and his staff, the activists, organized labor that really stepped up, the new environmentalists who operate in renewable energy companies here. There's been a sea change, but mostly it was because ComEd and Exelon weren't in the room drafting the legislation like they would have been 4 years or 8 years ago.
So this is the Mannequin effect, right? Anyway, that's
what do you think? What do you think about that, Senator Harmon? Was it the Mannequin effect, as Lynn suggests?
I'm not sure how I would even describe that. I think that obviously ComEd's plea agreement with the federal government has changed the flavor of the debate in Springfield, and they had a much softer voice. And that allowed activists and environmentalists and renewable energy companies and others to step up. And I think as a result, we made better public policy than we did when the utilities were drafting the laws.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Susan Lee, for that question. And my last thing here, you have a congressional map to draw, and I care a lot about that because I cover Washington. There have been drafts of a map done by Cook Political Report's David Wasserstein, who was a guest last month. And he had an analysis with his software where the Democrats who control the process can, with the 17 districts we'll have 14 safe Democratic districts, 2 swingy but Democratic leaning, and 3 Republican. Question 1, will the congressional map be done in the veto session?
Yes, we will be returning to Springfield in October, and the first priority is to pass a congressional map.
Do you have a draft already, or drafts?
We do not. We are just beginning the process. We're beginning to schedule the public hearings. We want to take testimony from Illinoisans from the top to the bottom, from the east to the west, and make sure that all that public input is factored into any map that we produce.
Have you had meetings with any of the delegation members to get their views, or when does that happen?
I expect that we will be having substantive conversations going forward. There have been no formal sit-downs with any members to talk about redistricting.
Okay, and do you have a view as to where the district should, we have to lose a district, where do you think it will come from?
This is a great question, Lynn, and I wanted to remind folks, in reapportionment, we went from 18 districts to 17 districts. That doesn't mean that a district disappears so much as all of the other districts get a little bit larger, and everybody in Illinois, including the entire congressional district, lives in one district or another. We're going to follow the population shifts. We're going to try to draw districts that are fair and reflect the diversity of the state of Illinois. We're going to follow the Federal Voting Rights Act as well as the Illinois Voting Rights Act, and try to build districts that best represent all of Illinois.
What, have you looked at Wasserstein's draft maps? What do you think?
I have not. I don't know him. I know that the map caused a fair amount of controversy, but I also knew that nobody in charge of passing the maps participated in drawing it. So.
No, he did it. He said he did it. Anyway, thank you. Laura, over to you.
Yeah, well, I would like to pick up on this whole conversation around the mapping, because as you know, there's been a debate for years about the openness of the process, and there was a push for a commission. There have been all kinds of efforts to get the public more involved and to have a say in those maps. The perception is it's always done in a smoke-filled room behind closed doors. You mentioned, Senator, there are going to be public hearings, but what do you say to people who say public hearings are just a fig leaf for legislators that are going to go behind closed doors and just do what they want to do? What is that? Where is the opportunity for public input?
So a couple of things. First of all, we had more than 40 hearings across the state, and we used Zoom as part of our platform so that you could participate in redistricting hearings without leaving your kitchen table if you wanted to.
So that was
I think that might have been
for the state map, the legislative map.
I know, correct, but I want to build off of that, because that's where we're really criticized for the drawing of our own districts. But I got my start in politics as a redistricting advocate in 2000. After that census, I went to bat for my hometown of Oak Park. 10 years earlier, Republicans who had the pen sliced up Oak Park into 3 congressional districts, 3 state Senate districts, 4 state rep districts, and 2 county board districts. So I was a witness advocating on behalf of Oak Park, and I was successful in part. Oak Park became an integral part of the 39th Senate district, and I was able to run and win. I will tell you that if you believe that we all draw our own districts in a smoke-filled back room, I've been trying for 20 years to put all of Oak Park into a single district, and even as Senate president, I came up short. So there are all sorts of competing pressures, primarily following the Voting Rights Act and the Illinois State Constitution, in making sure that we live up to the law and draw districts that are fair and represent the diversity of the state.
Right. And so people know, out of the 17 districts, because of the Voting Rights Acts, it's highly likely when they make the map, they will first carve out, if the population supports it, 3 districts to yield potentially a Black member of Congress. That's what we have now, and 1 Hispanic district, even though the Hispanic population in Illinois has grown and hasn't all grown in the same place. So it's hard to figure out a 2nd district. So you're still going to have to draw those districts first, right? I guess, hey, one other thing, with Michael Madigan not around, you don't have to draw a map to protect Congressman Lipinski.
So many things have changed, Lynn.
So I guess I wanted to come back to the earlier conversation about rate increases, and I think you feel that they're going to be the energy rate increases for consumers are going to be modest, and you said there's a lot of wild and unsubstantiated numbers being thrown around out there. Well, some of the numbers that are disputing your numbers are coming from the Republican Party, coming from conservative sources, and there's an expectation that they're going to use these rate increases as a cudgel against you and your party in the elections next year. So how are you going to respond to the fact that there's many people out there that feel that this is just another example of legislators going into the pockets of consumers and to the benefit of Commonwealth Edison and Exelon?
Well, what we set out to do was make sure that we had reliable, renewable, and affordable energy in Illinois. It's a huge competitive advantages for our businesses, and it's important for our residents that their electricity is not only affordable, but also reliable. When any of us flips the switch on our wall, we want the lights to come on. We don't want to be Texas, not only in areas of reproductive health care, we don't want to be Texas in areas of power where they fail to invest in their grid and unseasonable weather there knock the power out for weeks. We want affordable energy, but we also want reliable energy, and reliable energy isn't free. So yes, we're asking people to pay a little bit more for the delivery of their power. I hope it's offset in the medium term by reducing the cost of the power that's delivered. And I hope that no one's going to notice it, and the Republicans can do whatever they want to do in campaigns. Our job is to govern and to try to be responsible to the people who send us to Springfield.
Okay. I have another question from an audience member, and this is something that comes up in every session, and there's perception that there's never enough progress on it. John Strauss wants to know, what are the prospects for pension reform, for real pension reform in Springfield? Is there anything in the offing?
Well, John, thanks for that question. I'm hoping it's the John Strauss that I know. A couple of things. First, it seems to have been forgotten that we enacted major comprehensive pension reform in 2010. And as a result of that, every public employee in the state, the county, the city of Chicago, every municipality has a much, much more modest pension. It looks a lot more like Social Security, which incidentally, most pensioners don't qualify for. We still have the tier 1 employees, those who were hired before January 1st of 2011. And the Supreme Court has been very clear to us that we can't take those benefits away. It's unconstitutional. And I think that's true at both the state level and the federal level. I know there's a lot of wishful thinking about some constitutional amendment that will allow us to walk away from our obligations, but they're just that. They are promises that we made to public employees, and we've been working real hard to live up to our obligations and make the contributions every year. No one's ever missed a pension payment in Illinois. I don't expect anyone ever will, but that means we have to be diligent and keep squirreling away that money every year until the tipping point hits and we have more tier 2 employees than tier 1 employees. And at that point, the math just gets a lot easier.
And so you're basically saying that you've gone as far as you can go in terms of reforming the system because of constitutional reasons, and you have to just whittle down those numbers now. Is that where we are?
The pension clause in our Constitution is pretty darn clear, and the 7-0 Supreme Court decision made it all the more clear. Mm-hmm. We are already at about a third of public employees being in that second tier, that much less generous pension program, and we're approaching the 50% mark relatively soon. So we got to slog through the tunnel, but we took a really hard vote in 2010, and that in the long run is what gets us out of this pension mess that incidentally is more than 100 years in the making.
So we have 2 minutes left with you. So my question is a variation of one asked by our viewer, Mark Michaels, who wanted to know what you thought would be the top tier Senate races. Can you just tell us, by the way, I cover the United States Senate where Democrats have a 50-50. You have what, 41 votes in a 60-member chamber? It's like, I can't imagine what your life is like compared to what Democrats here have. But could you just tick off in the 1 minute left before I toss it back to Laura for Representative Cassidy, who are the 2, 3, 4 Chicago area state senators who you think will be the main GOP targets under the new map?
Well, this is the one election every 10 years following redistricting where all 59 Senate seats are up at the same time. So I think it's the same thing you're seeing in Washington. It's sort of the red areas versus the blue areas. I think the top tier races will be downstate. There might be some in the exurbs and in DuPage County where we hold seats that we never would have expected to hold 10 years ago. But the electorate is changing largely because of what's happened in Washington over the last 4 years.
Now it's 7:55. You have to go to your family event. President Don Harmon, President of the Illinois State Senate, hope you will be back at the virtual table. Thanks for joining us tonight. Laura, back to you.